So now that we're about 3 minutes in, let's jump in here. So welcome to SmartBug and Klaviyo's first Smart Take webinar event, which we're doing with Klaviyo every month. And we'll dive into new features, enhancements being rolled out by Klaviyo, and also we'll dive into new email and SMS strategies that your brand can use throughout the year. My name is Ryan O'Connor. I'm Director of Marketing at SmartBug Media. I'm responsible to know all the latest trends and strategies and e-commerce to share with our audience. And in a past life, I ran a successful e-commerce brand and also an email SMS agency. So let's jump in here. So Cody, can you go ahead and launch the poll for us if not already? So please go ahead. There's 2 questions here you can answer. And then while we wait for answers to come in, a little bit of housekeeping. Yes, we are recording, so we'll send this to you via email after. So if you want to share it with any of your colleagues or you're not able to attend the entire webinar, you can watch it. We'll also have a follow-up email by Friday. So the topic of this webinar is shoppable moments throughout the year, how your brand can leverage different holidays outside of Memorial Day and Black Friday throughout the year. And so we'll actually send some follow-up strategies, a recording to this webinar, and also a 2023 calendar template with all the major holidays, how to plan for those, and even email and SMS strategies for major holidays. And again, feel free to ask questions as we go. And as a quick reminder, yeah, this is a series, so we'll be doing one a month, relevant to the topics at hand for the month. Cool. So before we jump in, let's meet our speakers. So I already gave a quick intro about myself, a quick background about SmartBug Media. We're a full-service digital agency helping our clients with paid media, SEO, and also a top Klaviyo Master Elite partner, helping our clients fully make use of everything with Klaviyo to drive more revenue and engagement. We have Alex from Klaviyo and Belle from our team at SmartBug. I'll let you both give quick intros about yourself for everyone.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Belle. I'm the manager of client services for our e-commerce department here at SmartBug. Really excited to be here and talk shoppable moments.
And hi everyone, I'm Alex. I'm a content strategist at Klaviyo. And for those who don't know, Klaviyo is a marketing automation platform for email and SMS, serving over 100,000 e-commerce brands. And I am super excited to be here today and talk about all the moments outside of Black Friday, Cyber Monday that we think that you should be capitalizing on.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Belle. So let's show the results of the poll, and then we can jump into our first question and discussion. Cool. So it looks like majority of us here are using Klaviyo, but most only using it for email, and some are using a different platform. It's interesting. Okay. And I can't see the second question, Cody. I don't know if that popped, but well, let's jump in then to the first question. So Belle, Alex, oh, there it is. It just popped up. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm getting the poll popped up like 3 times for me. So let's jump into our first question, Belle. Alex, what exactly are shoppable moments? Why are they important? And why is it worth focusing on events other than Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and like Memorial Day throughout the year?
Yeah, I will kick things off. So shoppable moments can include the main events that we all know and love: Black Friday, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, but they can also be shoppable moments that are unique to your brand. So there's so many ways you can utilize those key moments throughout the year. And this is important because Black Friday and those major holidays are highly saturated and competitive. So it's a good strategy in general to have moments throughout the year where your brand can stand out.
Yeah, building off what Belle just said, I think there's 2 kinds of shoppable moments. It's like those minor holidays when you can kind of insert your brand into the conversation, and also that other brands might not be celebrating, which, you know, to Belle's point, again, it's breaking through the noise a bit more. Everybody's going to be talking about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but what about the Super Bowl or National Pet Day? Those things might be relevant to your brand, and they might not be relevant to other brands. So if you can talk about them in your messaging, it is a good way to kind of get in on the conversation that your customers are having, or create maybe a new conversation that they haven't had yet. And then the other type of shoppable moment is kind of revolving around the dates that are relevant to your customers on a more one-to-one basis. So their birthday, or an engagement, or a wedding date, or their pet's birthday. And then knowing these dates and creating communications around them can allow your brand to create more hyper-personalized messages and more effectively nurture those customer relationships.
I love that. So lots of examples from Alex and Belle, from, you know, New Year's, Valentine's Day to National Pet Day. I've even seen brands latch on to Twitter, like the Twitter created holidays. I can't think of, like, there's like a National Bubblegum Day that was created on Twitter, and then some like candy brands are using that. But I'm curious, if anyone here, and chat's working now, by the way, has anyone here heard of 4-peak theory versus 2-peak theory? If not, so basically there's traditionally in e-commerce with 2-peak theory, brands would plan for 2 major holidays, Black Friday and Christmas, and then a summer sale. And what happens is the sales will spike over summer and then go down. And then the other spike is in November, December. So 2 peaks throughout the year. Whereas a lot of brands now are trying to plan for at least 4 major events for every quarter 1 through quarter 4, that makes sense for your brand. Like Belle was saying, like Valentine's Day is a good example for a brand that's in the love or relationship space, right? So that'll give a spike in sales in quarter 1. So if you have at least 4 peaks and you're planning for these major events, it helps keep revenue driving up throughout the year. And that's because we're creating engagement and creating shoppable moments that our audiences, our customers, are going to love and be able to engage with the brand outside of just, you know, the major events.
Yeah, Ryan, I really like that theory, because I think that there was kind of this idea, you know, in recent years where D2C brands really wanted to be like precious about how many sales they were doing, and if they were doing sales at all. You know, a ton of the major ones, like Away for a while wasn't doing any sales because they kind of had this idea that it like cheapens the brand. And I think a lot of other marketers kind of took note of that and tried to do the same thing. But I think brands are getting a lot less precious about not holding sales, because they realize that consumers, you know, surprise, surprise, they like sales, and like they like when things are at discount, and it gives them an incentive to buy. So I think these shoppable moments are a really great way for brands to, you know, create discounts or promotions or sales of some kind, and like attach it to a meaning rather than just having it for no reason. And I think that's when it becomes a risk of, you know, cheapening the brand. But if you can attach it to something, it gives more of a story and more of a reason for you to be able to discount your products.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. So like I remember like 2016 to 2020, a lot of brands would just have flash sales or random sales with no meaning. So that, like you're saying, that their customers it's kind of cheapening the value of the brand. But if it's attached to something else that makes sense for the brand, customers are looking forward to that. They're getting excited for it.
Totally.
Cool. So let's jump into our next question here. So what, Alex, Belle, what is the best approach to collect and utilize data to be able to personalize these shoppable moments throughout the year?
You know, I think the post-purchase experience is often underestimated when it comes to collecting that important data. And that's because, you know, think about it, after a customer places their order, they're excited, they're waiting for their shipment to arrive, and they're eager to hear more from you during that post-purchase window. So I think this is the best time to learn more about them. What brought them to your site? How did they hear about you? What products or collections do they find the most valuable, and how they want to interact with your brand in the future. and of course the birthday and other important events to them. So the options are endless in what you can collect in that first period. And this allows you to use this information and personalize shoppable moments throughout the year in a way that's going to mean the most to them.
Yeah, I love that idea. I have two. I think that one really effective way to collect these dates, if you don't have them, is just to send out a simple campaign and say, hey, like, we'd like to know your birthday, for example. Do you mind updating, providing this information? Or even you could ask people to update in their preference center. That, of course, could be part of your welcome series, or it could be some kind of separate campaign. And then the other way to do it that's very simple is to just add a form field into your sign up form or your pop-up form, and instantly at the same time that people are giving you their email address and their phone number, that way you can collect that date data and you can have that as part of their customer profile for your entire customer relationship with them, and you're just automatically collecting that as soon as they're consenting to receive information from your brand. So those are two big ways that I think are a good way to collect that type of data.
That's awesome. Yeah. And oh, go ahead, Belle.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna chime in. I think it's just like, when I think about brands that I've interacted with, my first order is my first touch point, my first impression of the brand, and they have my full attention. I'm looking for those shipping updates. I'm, wanting to know when my order is going to arrive. So I'm more likely to open those emails or, be more receptive to their text messages at that time, because I'm so invested in like that first experience with the brand.
So I'm curious, Belle or Alex. So we've talked about, checkout or after the first purchase is a great time to collect zero or first party data. Same with Alex, you mentioned sending emails if we want to know more about our audience. Do either of you have any opinions or experience about collecting zero first party data before checkout or before email? For example, like I've seen a lot of technology now coming out with quizzes to help people who are not customers move through the product categories or preferences. Tools like Octane AI, and I think like Okendo has a quiz tool now, but I've been seeing a lot more of that come out.
Yeah, I think anytime that's it's a similar thing to the pop-up forms or the sign-up forms, where it's like we're talking about that zero party data, which is the data that your customers are explicitly giving you. So they're actually saying, telling your brand in some way, hey, I want to give you this data and here's what that is. So quizzes are a great way that you can collect a lot of this different data. You can collect their preferences and their interests around certain things, and then at the end maybe ask them for their birthday, or again like their pet's birthday or their due date or their wedding date, things like that can just further allow you to personalize the experience down the line.
I love that. I think one example I could think of a brand that we've worked with actually that has a quiz is called Habibi New York. They're a fragrance brand, I believe. Another one is Jones Road, I think, which is a much bigger brand that has a very famous quiz builder. I can't think of any others.
I know a lot of people do quizzes. I can't think of anybody that does a birthday off the top of my head though, or like collects like that kind of data off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's a bunch.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump into our third question here. So what are some common mistakes that companies make when implementing shoppable moments strategies?
I think the main mistake is, not using the data that they've worked so hard to collect. Consistency is key. And if a customer takes the time to provide this data to you, there's a certain expectation that you will pay attention to their response and communicate with them accordingly. This can be done through segmentation or coordinated campaigns and automations utilizing that data. And in the same vein as consistency is key, if a brand is wanting to create a shoppable moment for their customers, like a pet brand with a huge focus on National Pat Day or National Dog Day, it should be something your audience can look forward to each year. So each year brands should be able to look at new and innovative ways to hype up these events, and not being consistent with that event, whatever that may be, devalues its importance to your customers. So it's really important that you're consistent with what that is and make it a big shoppable moment every single year.
I love that, Bill. I love the idea of consistency is key, because I'm sure a lot of you have had experiences with brands where they're asking you questions, maybe on the pop-up, or like we've talked about in checkout or in the quiz, and then you don't actually hear anything more about the questions that you answered. Like, for example, there's a brand I used to shop with called Herty brand. It's a big men's apparel. And they used to have this pop-up that asked me what style of clothes that I like, and it was like beachwear, I think like sportswear, that kind of stuff. And then I added all this information. They never personalized the products that were sent to me. The email campaigns or text campaigns that came to me were just discount codes. They didn't actually, like, I love beachwear, and they never actually sent anything to me about that, which was really frustrating. So I love that idea, Belle. Consistency is key.
Yeah, I like that. I think like in the same vein too, there's a lot of brands that do this kind of like faux personalization, right? Where it's like, it's an email or something that seems like it's personalized, but they haven't actually used any data behind the scenes. So for example, recently I got an email from a pretty big jewelry brand, and the subject line was something like calling all November babies. And the content of the email was jewelry that featured the birthstone for people born in November, which is great, right? But my birthday is in December.
Because you're a Sagittarius.
I am, yes.
Got it.
And they never collected my birthday, with like throughout my relationship with the brand, which, is fine. But it's like, this email was super irrelevant to me because my birthday is not in November. And it's like, if you're going to do an email like that, where it is somewhat, it seems personalized to the person, you should be using that data behind it to make sure that it's personalized, and you shouldn't just be batching and blasting those types of emails out to everybody. So that's kind of an example of, what happens, what, you shouldn't do with these shoppable moments. It's creating these emails that seem like they're personalized to people, but they really have no data behind them. And then it ends up creating, an irrelevant experience for customers, taking up room in my inbox. And I was just kind of confused by it, because obviously I'm not going to be shopping for a November birthstone.
I love that. It's such a funny example. Well, it's cool to see the e-com industry evolve. And like over the last couple of years, the question of let's collect all this data, and now over the last couple of years, it's how do we actually use that data intelligently to be able to personalize experience. And now consumers are getting that more and more. So when you don't do it right, like in Alex's example of her being a November baby, that is kind of a turnoff, because you expect more from brands.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, like, it doesn't really tie into the shoppable moments thing, but like, if a brand asks you, how often do you want to receive emails from us? And you say once a week, and then you still continue to get 4 to 5 emails per week, that is a really quick way to get those unsubscribe rates up. So just definitely making use of anything that you collect from your audience is super important.
Most definitely. Well, let's jump in. We have about 10 minutes more on our discussion. So I wanted to ask one more question, and then we can open it up to any of the questions you all have in our audience. So last question here, Alex, Bell, what are some successful examples of shoppable moments and the factors that contributed to their success?
Yeah, I have one that came to mind immediately. I worked with a floral arrangement brand a few years back, and they had lower sales outside of those major like flower gifting holidays, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. So we were tasked with identifying another opportunity to reach their customers during shoppable moments throughout the year. So with our strategy, we actually asked customers to submit their wedding anniversary, which would then trigger an anniversary reminder automation. And I think the reason that was successful was the incentive to the customer was so strong. I mean, it's a reminder to celebrate their loved one, making sure they didn't forget to acknowledge their anniversary. And the automation consisted of about like 3 to 4 emails with a countdown to their special day. So 1 month till your anniversary, 2 weeks, down to 1 week. And the automation had filters in place so that if they did place their order, they were removed, and we didn't keep bugging them to remember. But we actually ended up duplicating this process because it resulted in a pretty reliable, steady revenue throughout the year. And so we ended up duplicating that for people being able to set birthday reminders. So if they had somebody special that they wanted to remember their birthday, and it really was impactful because, it kind of allowed the brand to acknowledge their own personal shoppable moments. So that definitely stood out to me.
I love that. And how did the brand decide to, or how did we decide to go after that strategy of the anniversary date when they never had done that before? Because we're talking about shoppable moments for a specific brand. How did they know to go after that? I guess it's a little easy with floral arrangements, but like, why did they never do that before?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just it came from, how can we collect this data and can we do anything with it? And I think that's when it was really exciting to talk about Klaviyo's features and how we can tie that date to their profile and utilize it accordingly. Yeah, it seems like it would be an obvious approach, but we definitely stepped in to sort of open their eyes to the capabilities of Klaviyo, and it was really successful.
I love that. Alex, what about you? Any examples off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think 2 come to mind. So the brand Skinny Dip, they do a first purchase anniversary email that specifically has a goal of winning back their customers. So they feature a discount code for 10% off. But that only goes to purchasers or to customers who haven't purchased for a while. So they've actually segmented their emails so that, everybody gets a first purchase anniversary email, but only some people are getting that discount. And I think this is a really good way to further personal. I mean, a first purchase anniversary email is already personalized because you're using, in this case, first party data. And we can get into that more in the Q&A portion, because I know somebody asked about that. But in this case, that's first party data that they're using to create this automation. But I like that they go into it with this goal of actually winning back customers, and they even further personalize it by segmenting by how active the shopper was. And then the second example that comes to mind is the brand Paramount Pet Health. So they sell supplements for pets, and they actually collect pet names and birthdays. And then in their pet birthday email, they further personalize the email based on what kind of pet the customer has and the pet's name. So again, that's just like a cute way, to create these shoppable moments with your customers, wish your customers pet a happy birthday, include the kind of pet they have, like, is it a dog or a cat, and put the name in the email. It's these small things that you can do to personalize these moments and make it a really special experience for your customers. And that really stands out to people, I think.
Yeah, I like that example for the pet brand, because another question that might come up is like, how do you collect more data, right? And a mistake brands might make is asking for too much upfront. Like a pop-up is the classic example. Why do pop-ups typically only have email? And in the past, you used to have, first name, whatever, job description, or your pet name, all that stuff. And the reason is like the conversions drop the more items you have in an initial form.
Yeah.
Same with like if you have a long quit right after their first purchase, they haven't got the product yet. You want to collect a little bit more, but if you give them a big quiz or have a bunch of questions, they're less likely to answer it. So the question becomes, how do you collect more data? I think, Alex, in your example with the pet store, they collect more throughout the journey where it makes sense. So first, the name and the birthday. Then when the birthday comes around, the customer is delighted because that brand sent a pet birthday email to them, right? And then collecting more data, they're going to be more willing to offer over more information at that point. So almost kind of like mapping out your customer journey and the key points where we can collect a piece of information that makes sense that you'd be able to use for your brand's marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point.
All right. Well, we are about 30 minutes in, so I want to make sure we have some time to address any questions. And also I wanted to, before we jump into questions, just wanted to mention that after the webinar, I think by Friday this week, we'll send a follow-up email with some additional resources. So we have an entire 2023 holiday and event calendar of all the major holidays, minor holidays, culture events. So you can plan around those for your brand. We also have a couple of strategy pieces, so you can read about how to plan for different events or major events throughout the year, and make use of these to tie to your brand. And again, that will be sent out on Friday, I believe, or by Friday. Cool. So let's jump into questions. So first question we have here from Kira: what is the difference between zero and first party data?
Did you want to talk to that one, Bella, or I can?
Oh, I was like, whoever's going to get to it first.
Okay, so from my perspective, or the way I see it, is that zero party, so both types of zero and first party data, you need to have the customer or the shopper consented into communications from your brand to collect either of them. So again, that first pop-up or that first sign up interaction where you're collecting their email and their phone number, that's when they're saying, yes, I basically consent to hearing from your brand and like having you track me across your website. So the zero party data is, again, the email and the phone number, the things that they're consenting to specifically and explicitly giving your brand. And then if there's like another form field where it's like, do you prefer men's or women's clothes, or what's your birthday, as we're talking about, those are all forms of zero party data, as well as like in a quiz, as we're talking about, anything that they select there is zero party data. First party data, on the other hand, is pretty much all the interactions that they have with your brand that you're observing from them because they've already consented into, in that relationship with your brand. So anytime they make a purchase, anytime they view a web page, when they add something to cart, these behaviors and these actions are all these things that you observe. Those are first party data, and you can use both of those to create, to better segment and to better filter and to better personalize your automations and campaigns.
And Klaviyo stores all that data and lets you use it to personalize your customers' experiences.
Yes, we do. We love customer data.
Oh yeah. Anything to add, Belle? Any thoughts? If not, we have another question too.
Yeah, I don't know if I can say it better than Klaviyo itself, but yeah, I think she explained it really well.
Okay, awesome. So let's go to our second question. I just saw, by the way, Nikki had a comment while we were chatting about kind of the failed shopping moments. It's funny, even a massive brand like Starbucks sent Nikki her top ordered drink in an email, but she never ordered that once all year. I wonder how that even happened. Maybe they didn't have the right data or the right input in there, but that's a pretty big mistake.
They're not using Klaviyo.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Cool. All right. Second question here. How many shoppable, this is from Anonymous. So how many shoppable moments should we plan to do throughout the year? How much is too much?
I think bringing up the 4-peak theory was a great starting point, like having something big every quarter that you can really build a strategy around and highlight. I don't think that there really is too much. I mean, it could vary depending on the brand. I think the most important thing is that it makes sense, like a supplement brand making a big event over like Valentine's Day. I mean, you could get really creative, I suppose, but it doesn't quite make sense for the brand. So I think that just making sure that anything you choose to highlight and build a strategy around makes sense to your customers. And it's not something that is easily like viewed as, a sale for no reason, sort of like we were talking about at the beginning. So I don't think there's an answer to, is there too much? But there's definitely a starting point, which is those 4 quarters, making sure you have a big event around those times.
Yeah, I think the answer to a lot of tough questions is it depends, right, on the
Yeah.
brand. I love, like, as an example of a brand who's kind of on the end where they can send or they can plan a lot of shoppable moments throughout the year, and we've had a lot of clients like this, Bill, and I know you've worked with some of them, is the gifting brands who kind of across the board their theme is gifting, so they can really plan for every major holiday where you'd be buying something for a loved one or a friend, from Mother's Day, Father's Day, to, I don't know, Memorial Day, and then of course Black Friday. They have a lot more of these shoppable moments that make sense. Whereas a very niche brand that's like, we had a client who it's called You Suck at Golf, and it's like the whole theme is nine hole kind of go out, drink beer, and play golf. There isn't as many holidays that they can make use of, probably like 4th of July and a few other, Mardi Gras, that kind of stuff. But other than that, they don't have as many options as a gifting brand to tie that, more shoppable moments to the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's opportunities too for brands that aren't a traditional like gift brand. I'm thinking like skincare. I mean, if you really know a person well, you know what skincare they like, but for the most part, it's a personal purchase. And Valentine's Day keeps coming to mind because it's, so recent. How you phrase your messaging can make things like that still a shoppable moment. So rather than, gift your loved one something for Valentine's Day, if you're a skincare brand, you can, really celebrate self-love and treat yourself sort of messaging to tie in that shoppable moment. So I love to nerd out about like campaign calendars and content strategy, but that's definitely like, it's not impossible to make a shoppable moment work for your brand, even if it's personal.
Like that, and you inadvertently answered a question that just came in. How can I apply these strategies to personal products that aren't gifts?
Yeah, I think you can get creative with pretty much anything. And like you were referencing earlier, there's like a national day for everything, and so having a calendar where you can really tie those important events. Maybe somebody didn't know it's like National Apple Pie Day, but you sell baking ingredients, so it's totally relevant. How can you do that? How can you make that a shoppable moment and exciting time for your audience? Options are endless, really.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is that you don't have to get in on the biggest holidays. You don't have to get in on St. Patrick's Day and 4th of July and, those big ones if it doesn't make sense for your brand. And if you can't fit your story around it, then don't force it. If anything, like it's not going to resonate with your customers at the end of the day if it doesn't resonate with you and like your brand voice. But that's why, thinking about other shoppable moments is a really great idea, because maybe there is a smaller holiday or just like some kind of funny holiday that's coming up, like National Margarita Day, and maybe you can insert your brand into that conversation. And that's also why it's really great to have these automations that you can create around your zero and first party data that you're collecting from your customers, because you don't have to create something that's like super attached to even a holiday. You can just create something that's attached to your customer relationships. Every brand, can look at their data and say, oh, like, should I do a first purchase anniversary email for my customer? Should I do a birthday email for my customer, make them feel special on like their birthday? These things are really easy to set up, and then you set them up once and they kind of just keep going and making you money, while you do stuff. So even if you feel like you can't get in on those big holidays, there's so many opportunities for you to engage with your customers throughout the year.
Love that. Well, we have about 7 minutes left here. There's no more questions. So last chance, is anyone have any final questions about shoppable moments or anything related or unrelated? We can answer. I'll give people like 10 seconds here. Doesn't look like it. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar then. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you all found this educational, a little bit informative. Hopefully, this you can take some information and apply these strategies to your brand. If you do need any help with some of these strategies or bounce ideas around, feel free to reach out to us at SmartBug Media, and we can help you with some of this planning. Thank you, Alex Bell, for being amazing guest and answering all these questions and diving into strategies. You're both very experienced and knowledgeable in the field, and I loved having you here.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And so cool. Yeah. Feel free to, if you join this webinar, we'll be doing another one next month and every month throughout the year with a topic, again, relevant to what's going on around that time or for 2023. And feel free to follow both SmartBug Media and Klaviyo on our social media. And we'll also be sending out an email with the email and SMS campaign calendar, as well as some of the strategies we talked about here today. So you can read a little bit more if you want to apply those yourself. Thank you so much for joining, and take care.
Thanks, everyone.
We are still live.